Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, there's a couple ideas, a couple philosophies that I've always lived my life by. I'm going to mention two of them because I think they're relevant here. The first is, you have to know how to laugh at yourself. You have to know how to enjoy self-deprecating humor, to know that you're not a perfect human being, that you have flaws, frankly, that everybody has flaws. You have to be able to laugh at those things and acknowledge that they're real. It's called being honest with yourself. And then, of course, that ties into the second point. You have to be able to identify your weaknesses, identify what you're doing wrong or what you've done wrong in order to course correct and move forward in an effective and productive manner. That is how you evolve as a human being. You know, I've met so many people in my life who just have a complete inability to do that. Sometimes very intelligent, capable people who just have such a level of pride to the extent that it becomes a weakness. They don't have the ability to be introspective. They don't have the ability to look at themselves, see their flaws, admit that they're wrong, admit that they're doing something wrong, or that they're flawed, and again, course correct. And those people, despite the fact that they're intelligent, capable, well, they just don't go as far as somebody who is honest and has the ability to self-criticize and improve regularly. Even with less talent, the person who is self-critical will end up getting further in life. Well, that's kind of the topic of today's video. I am obviously much more conservative-minded than I am liberal, and so of course I find myself aligning with conservative parties, but that doesn't mean that conservatives are perfect. That doesn't mean that Republicans are perfect, and it also doesn't mean that Donald Trump is perfect. And the other day during the Libertarian National Convention, a lot of criticisms were lobbed towards the Republican Party, and there's a couple elements here where I think they have a point, and I think I'd be a dishonest person to be biased in my selection of what I choose to cover. I want to talk about those things. I want to listen to the detractors because frankly, I agree. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so I first want to start off with this interaction. We have Vivek Ramaswamy, Dave Smith, and a man by the name of Clint Russell discussing ideas here, and this was said.
It's interesting because I was thinking about that right before we came out here, and it was actually a tagline in your speech about turning words into action. The issue has been that the GOP, throughout my entire life, has not turned words into action. They've promised to defend the Constitution. When? I'm not glad before they do it. I mean, this is my deep-seated concern. They also talk about limited government. They talk about ending the wars. They talk about bringing our troops home. When? It's not happening. So the reason the Libertarian Party is as viable as it is, the reason that Donald Trump and yourself and even RFK are here this weekend is because the election margins are so thin that you guys need us. And I appreciate that you're willing to come and talk to us because there's not real animus, particularly between you and I. I have a tremendous amount of respect for you. But there is a tremendous amount of animosity between myself and the GOP, who has ran around talking as if they're Ron Paul and then governing as if they're John McCain. More than Donald Trump, just the GOP broadly. It's like when do we actually expect to see the outcome? Because we're $35 trillion in debt. Over $1 trillion. Power bottom! I mean, that's going to be the largest expenditure for the United States government. The largest government in the history of the world is going to spend more on interest than on our national defense. I'm sorry, but that's just not a sustainable trajectory.
There was one line there that I thought was really fantastic. The GOP talks like Ron Paul and then governs like John McCain. That is a valid criticism. There was also this clip.
Do you think that, given the fact that Donald Trump was president for 4 years, do you think we've seen much to indicate that the people in this room will be shaping his policy in any meaningful way if he's in again?
This probably isn't going to make me any friends in the GOP, but I'm going to tell the truth because that's what I promised you guys on the stage just about an hour ago. I'm very concerned about some of the maneuvers that I've seen and some of the rumors that I've heard, particularly when it comes to the foreign aid package that was passed just last month. You have Lindsey Graham, you have a handful of Boris Johnson, God knows how that fat idiot would know, but he also said that Donald Trump was ultimately the one that was responsible for greenlighting $100 billion additional dollars that are going to proxy wars against nuclear powers. That is not America first. That is not make America great again. That is neoconservatism. That is Nikki Haley. That is the person that you ended their political career. Tell me why Donald Trump is better, because I can't see it. I don't understand what's happening there.
Again, it's true. I can't argue against that. $100 billion to proxy wars is not America first, it's neoconservatism. That's Nikki Haley. You know, we spent all this time bashing Nikki Haley, going on and on about Lockheed Haley, how she's the wrong person for the job, she's a warmonger, an establishment shill, but there's not enough emphasis when looking at the Republican Party as a whole and even Donald Trump applying that exact same standard. If you're gonna say America first, you truly need to meet it, and that of course applies to the foreign policy stance at large. And you know, this right here is why I love the fact that Vivek and Donald Trump and other Republicans showed up at this libertarian event. It shows the importance of having a challenging conversation in a Trump bubble, a Republican bubble, or a conservative bubble, but listening to your detractors, listening to people who have valid criticisms or different opinions, having a real conversation and actually being honest about the ideas. For me personally, this creates clarity. It's not to say that Donald Trump should be condemned totally, oh, he did everything wrong. No, not at all. But the Trump movement, the MAGA movement, is a grassroots movement, and it really starts with people like you, people who are listening, people who are heading to the ballot box, people who go to these rallies. You set the tone. And at the end of the day, you know, politicians have to answer to the voters. And the question is, what kind of grassroots pressure do you want to apply on your politicians? What do you want to get out of voting, out of the democratic process? No endless wars, no proxy wars, a curbing to this Pentagon endless war money spending seems like something that's pretty high on the priority list for Trump voters. Well, the non-hypocritical thing to do here is to apply that standard and to be rigorous in the application. You know, I have a couple criticisms when it comes to Donald Trump. Number one is spending. If you're going to be a conservative, you have to balance the budget. You have to be fiscally conservative. I personally think that Donald Trump could have done a better job at reducing spending and reducing government waste in his first 4 years in office. He should be held to that standard. And the second issue is personnel picks. Again, these are very common criticisms. You hear them from the most staunch of Trump supporters. Donald Trump has to pick the right people. During his first 4 years in office, picking someone like John Bolton to be a part of his administration, things like that cannot happen. And now we're hearing about Trump bringing back Mike Pompeo and even possibly including Nikki Haley, although we're not exactly sure about that just yet. I mean, it's hard to say exactly what Trump meant, but he did say this.
A big night last night, Nikki Haley making her first public remarks since dropping out of the race. She said that Joe Biden has been a catastrophe, and she said she's voting for you. I'm sure those were welcome remarks for you, but it also left a lot of people wondering, is there room for her on your team, or better yet, your ticket?
Well, I think she's going to be on our team because we have a lot of the same ideas, the same thoughts. I appreciated what she said. You know, we had a nasty campaign. It was pretty nasty, but she's a very capable person, and I'm sure she's going to be on our team in some form. Absolutely.
Now that could mean a million different things, part of the team. What I'm assuming is that he's going to work with Nikki Haley, who recently endorsed him in an effort to widen his reach towards conservative-minded voters, Nikki Haley independents. He's doing the same thing with Ron DeSantis. If that's the case, then absolutely I'm all for it. But Nikki Haley being part of the cabinet once again, that's a no-go. Being part of the actual White House team, that is a no-go. Again, this is something that the voters must enforce. This is something that you must enforce. I think it's healthy to be critical. I think it's healthy to have criticisms and have disagreements and to voice them without being attacked, because let's be real, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. Usually when I make videos like this, I get a bunch of dislikes, I get a bunch of people who get very angry with me. In my view, that's leftist cult-like behavior. I'm just gonna say it. You cannot criticize our side. You cannot question. That cannot be the standard. Many of the criticisms and points raised by these libertarian detractors are valid. It's not game-breaking stuff. It's not the kind of thing that would have you second-guess voting for Donald Trump. No, I still think he's by far the greatest president of my generation, but these mistakes simply cannot happen again. The overspending, the stacking of debt, it's gotta stop. The bad personnel picks, opening the door for the deep state to sabotage the Trump White House cannot happen again. And if you're truly gonna be America first, you need to walk the talk. You can't just talk. I'm really glad that Donald Trump went into the libertarian lion's den. It's about time we start having these honest, productive conversations. Because at the end of the day, that is what politics is really about. Not just people hanging out in their little bubbles, only looking for confirmation bias information, Hats off to Clint Russell, hats off to Dave Smith. I think they were fair, I think they did a good job. The crowd was a little bit unhinged, even some SJW vibes at some point, but the guys on stage did a phenomenal job. I really enjoyed the event, and we ought to be talking about this stuff more often. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.